Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I want to let you know that this is about the ego. Now, if you're a first time visitor to SedonaMiracleCenter.org or you've seen some of our content already, this is an ongoing continuation of lots of great content we're going to be making to introduce A Course in Miracles, talk about themes and aspects of the Course, talk about how you implement the Course in your life. And so today we're going to focus a little bit of time on the ego. The learning about the ego is one of the most important aspects of the teaching that Jesus is giving us in A Course in Miracles. We have a wonderful introduction to A Course in Miracles video. I say wonderful because I made it with Jan O'Kelly, my co-conspirator. We have an introduction to A Course in Miracles video on the website SedonaMiracleCenter.org, or you can find it on YouTube as well. So although I'm going to go right into the content of the Course in Miracles and discuss themes, if you'd like to, as far as being a first-time course student or just coming to this video without seeing any other ones, please feel free to stay in and listen with this or go back to the introduction to start. But fundamentally, one of the most important teachings within A Course in Miracles is about the ego. And Jesus is coming back with the thought system that he's guiding us to in the Course, redirecting us entirely away from a false perception of ourself, a false understanding of the world, a false understanding of God. And the most important application for ourselves is Jesus is going back to teach us what he taught in the lifetime we're all so familiar with. Unfortunately, over thousands of years, Jesus' teachings have been misconstrued and corrupted and co-opted. And one of the purposes of the Course coming into the world at the time it did was to guide us back to the original teachings that Jesus lived and taught. The most important aspect as we begin A Course in Miracles is Jesus starts to teach us the truth of who we really are and what's really going on within ourselves. The ego is a huge portion of that, and it is a little bit paradoxical, as Jesus will teach us in the Course, that the ego is actually a hallucination, that the ego doesn't actually exist. However, while we are going through the experience of this lifetime on the planet, we are experiencing the ego. And so first and foremost, the ego is not an entity. It is not an opposing force. It's not something we're doing battle with, but it is within us, and it's within us all. And we can see the ego over history reflected in different thought systems and religions represented in different ways, but very often it's represented as the devil, as a part or force of evil that we have within us. This is a very interesting way that we can see thousands of years go by without a true understanding of what we really are, because of the promotion of fear and control that many thought systems and religions have used. And this is not an attack on religion. I'm just saying it how it is, and I don't mean to offend anyone if I do. But part of Jesus coming back is to set the record straight and to redirect us to truth. And within truth, there really are no apologies. But to be clear, we're not trying to attack anyone specifically or any organization in general. So we've gone thousands of years with this idea that within ourselves, there's a devil, there's an evil, there's a force that's attacking us, that God is allowing this on some level, and that in truth, we have been able to easily been herded into that mindset because in fact, we do have a voice inside of us that is telling us to judge, to attack, to hurt, to lie, to cheat, to steal. And we haven't collectively begun to discuss this as a species. We've indeed been segregated into many different categories of thought that do incorporate the idea that there's evil, that there's a force against us, and that God is helpless in a way, because it's up to us to either damn ourselves or save ourselves. And so the ego, Jesus is going to teach us in A Course in Miracles, is not the devil, in that it's not evil. And the path of A Course in Miracles is a path of happiness and peace. Jesus is teaching us to become like he was, an enlightened master, using a thought system that allows us to evolve into a place where we become a spiritual master. But not only that, we come to a place of peace and happiness because we're using truth. We're using the true story of what we are and how we got here and why. And so it allows us this wonderful opportunity for freedom if we're able to learn from a master like Jesus. To be clear, A Course in Miracles is not saying it's the only way, that you're damned if you don't follow this path. Jesus is very clear in saying this is one of many ways to enlightenment and that we're all capable of it. He reminds us that he's not special in any way. He's our brother guiding us back to the light. And so we look at ourselves in thought systems on the planet as sinners, as guilty, as under attack by evil, really almost helpless in a way for this force that's within us and externally. Jesus is saying none of that is true. None of that is real. He's teaching us that indeed there is no evil at all. All of the horrible things that we're experiencing here, all of the wars and the crime and the poverty and the murders and everything indeed that is unpleasant and unpeaceful, we collectively are responsible for. And the ego within us is the driver of all that appears to be evil. So it's a big step in learning who we are, and it's a big step in taking responsibility for playing a part in the co-creation of the world and all the problems that are here. But it's not a bad thing. It's not a problem in a sense. We just have to learn what we've been doing wrong so that we can learn to do what's right. And it starts with the wonderful news that there is no devil, there is no evil, there is no punishment waiting for us. We are in an environment, an experience of separation that we chose to come and enter. God's not waiting to punish us. God's perfectly, unconditionally loving us this entire time, residing in a different vibration, a place we know as heaven, a place of pure love. And the vibration that we are involved with right now, using the thought system of the ego, which we'll talk about, is lowered our vibration so much that we cannot connect and remember God. We are always with God, but we cannot remember it when we go into a place so disconnected from the truth of who we are, and we use a thought system that's teaching us the exact opposite of what's true. It's important to note that different psychological systems on the planet and even different belief systems will define the ego and use the word ego. And to be clear, Jesus is redefining it on all levels, although it could be seen as very similar in many ways to the ego Freud describes. And so the ego, again, to reiterate, is not real. It is not an opposing force. It is not an entity. It is described by Jesus as a device. Where did the ego come from is an important question you might have thought of. And Jesus lets us know that when we chose to experience separation, which is the idea that we in heaven, perfect and complete with God, but with total free will, are allowed by God to choose whatever we would like within the parameters that he created. That we are eternal, holy, innocent, holy, loving beings, but we made real. Oh my gosh, I'm somewhere new. Oh my gosh, it's different. Oh my gosh, I'm afraid. Oh my gosh, I've done something wrong. And as a child, we just, as we're developing within the joy of the boundaries of heaven, this is what's happened. This is what Jesus is telling us is how this universe came about and why we're here. So in the moment of fear and guilt, we turned within to ourselves to fix the problem. And for the first time, we felt fear. For the first time, we felt guilt. So then we made another mistake. We made something to replace God because we were afraid that we'd done something wrong. Similar to a little child who thinks he's done something really wrong, and maybe will make up a story. Instead of the parent standing there, doesn't care at all. I don't care that you spilt the paint all over the place. I don't care. I love you no matter what. But as a child, we're like, oh my gosh, it's a problem. There was a monkey. It ran around. I don't know what to tell you. But this is not what happened. And the parent knows that's not what happened. The parent doesn't care. But we, in our experience here, made the ego. Now remember, because this is not a real experience, it's a dream, we didn't create the ego. The ego doesn't exist in reality. We made it in our dream. Similar to the characters in your dream, when you wake up at night, they just disappear. So while we're here in this experience of separation, while we are here, the ego seems to be a very real thing. So what is the ego then? We made the ego to replace God, so immediately we infused it with all of the power that God has given us as creators. You can imagine a super advanced, super powerful artificial intelligence that we designed to hide the fear and the guilt that we felt. So the ego is literally a device to project our fear and guilt out into the world. And in that sense, we hide from it. Now, the irony is there's nothing to be afraid of, and there is no guilt to be had because nothing's wrong. The child of God has spilled some paint. It's no big deal. Because we're so powerful, because God has given us all of his creative ability, we spilled this paint everywhere. And we're spending a long, long time because we can't recognize that it isn't a problem. So this is the fundamental truth of where the Course in Miracles describes how the universe came about and how we got here. So as powerful sons, daughters of God, we made a mistake. And that mistake was why we turned away from God to make the ego. So then the ego has been running rampant inside of our minds ever since, just doing what we programmed it to do. Keep us from remembering God, keep us from remembering our true selves, keep us here in the world searching for fulfillment and happiness in jobs and careers and relationships and all the material things the world has to offer. So to recap for a moment here, the ego is a device we can think of that we made. It's not real. It has our power. So it is very effective at what we gave it to do. We gave it the job of playing God for us. Why? Because in our childlike innocence, we thought we did something wrong that we were going to be punished for. What did we do? We used our free will to have an experience other than what God gave us. That was to create a universe, to go into it, and to lose our awareness of our oneness with God. So now you have, maybe for the first time, an understanding of what A Course in Miracles is teaching about where the ego came from and why. And so the most powerful and beautiful thing in the beginning as Course in Miracles students is really learning that you have an ego, that this is what's going on. Now, the amount of freedom that this ultimately provides is unimaginable for those who have been mired or happily engaged in a thought system that teaches you that you're a sinner, that you're guilty, that there's something wrong with you. And so the truth of the matter is that there's nothing wrong with you. You're totally perfect. You've just been using a device that's been telling you lies upon lies upon lies about who you are, about what God is, about what's going on in the world. And the only issue is that you've forgotten that you're the one responsible for programming this device. One of the exciting things about learning the foundation of A Course in Miracles for many students and teachers is the relationship to the movie The Matrix. And when the movie The Matrix came out, it included some seminal ideas about philosophy, about the way the world could possibly be, while also incorporating amazing action and themes that were relevant to the hero's journey, if you will, on the planet. But for Course in Miracles students, we saw, for those who are already aware of the Course or when we get into the Course, that the theme of the idea of being trapped in a system that you didn't know you were trapped in is very, very much in line with what we've done with the ego and what the ego has done with us. Now, the joy of the situation is that we're not actually trapped, but we need help. So similar to the movie, the idea of the Matrix is you need something outside of the Matrix to tell you what's going on and to give you a lifeline out. Because the power of the Matrix was so complete that there was no way you were ever going to figure it out yourself. At best, you could figure out that there was something wrong, it didn't feel right, that nothing really worked, that you weren't happy here. But the idea that you could possibly figure this out is part of the reason A Course exists. Jesus came back to guide us back And now this is one of many different ways and many different masters who have walked the earth in different countries and at different times, who all were teaching this same foundational ideas, that only love is real, that we've gotten disconnected from the truth of who we are. And so this is what the ego has done. We unintentionally programmed it to keep us bound in lies. And so what the ego has produced is a thought system that we have been using without realizing it. When I first came across this idea, I thought first and foremost, why aren't we all talking about this? Because the more you look into it, the more you study the course, the more you talk to others about it, we all can so easily recognize that we have this same system within us. It's a system that makes us feel bad about what we eat and who we're with. It makes us feel bad about what we wear, what we look like. It makes us feel bad about what we did or didn't do the day before. It makes us worried about the future. Indeed, there's different flavors, if you will, of this ice cream of anxiety and fear, but fundamentally, we all recognize. And I thought to myself, really excitedly, as I first kind of understood the course was about or what it was teaching, was like, we are all in this together and none of us are talking about it. And I saw that then that the way we were divided through religions and belief systems that were telling us things that weren't true about who we are and what we're doing, of course we're not talking about it. We're afraid to talk about it. We're afraid to talk about the fearful voice within us. One, because some of us think it's a devil. One, because some of us think it's ourselves and there's really something horribly wrong with us. And neither of those is true. And this is part of the joy of the course, the joy of truth, the joy of the path. Because Jesus has come to offer us a new thought system. He's offering us a thought system 180 degrees opposite from the one we've been using and the one the ego will relentlessly promote. And so to remember, the ego is using fear to teach us lies because we empowered it to do so as a mistake. There is nothing wrong with any of you. There's nothing wrong with anyone who has ever walked the planet. They have begun and then continued and continue to go deeper into distress and making error upon error because they were disconnected from the truth of who we are. Now, right now on the planet, there's very popular scientific theories about the holographic universe and simulation theory. And indeed, this is another representation of the correlation between the matrix, between truth, between what's happening here. This is a dream world that God, in his massive brilliance, has allowed us to have the experience of without actually getting hurt, without actually dying, without actually getting stuck. So, how are we getting unstuck? Well, the path of A Course in Miracles is one of those ways to awaken, to become unstuck, to come out of the dream, to end the experience of separation, which in our heart of hearts is what we want more than anything. Because we remember deep down in our minds, we remember heaven, we remember God, we remember our real world. And that's why so many religions work, because they effectively tell us these answers without providing proof or an experience that's sufficient to validate what they're teaching. So then we get stuck in all these different belief systems that aren't true. And then we have the ego the whole time making us feel guilty and afraid, and which is binding us deeper and deeper into judgment and fear. So we need help. Just like the Matrix, we need help from outside. Jesus comes from the outside with the Holy Spirit, which we'll have another module on. But the initial way to understand the Holy Spirit, if this is your first video with us, is the Holy Spirit is the voice for God or the lifeline. God cannot change. God is in perfect vibration of love. God isn't here. This is a radical concept that we discussed in the introduction to the course video. God is with us in the sense that we are always with God, but God is not going to come into an experience that is different than the vibration he exists in, which is pure love. But what God can do is God can wake us up. God can assist us. And the way he's doing it is with the Holy Spirit, his voice, the whisper, the other voice inside of us. And this is where it gets really exciting, because we also know we have this other voice inside of us. the angel on the shoulder, the devil on the shoulder is the way some religions describe it. Our conscience is a way it's been talked about in a materialistic way. What's interesting though is, what is the opposite of conscience? What part I'm thinking about it, and when I first did, wait a minute, we don't have a word for that. We use angel and devil in a religious way, but the material world almost ignores that other voice. We have our conscience, the voice that tells us to do good and guides us the way we want to go, but we also have that other voice. And so it was a very sneaky way for us to overlook it. Why? Because we're afraid. We're simply afraid. And we have a right to be afraid because we've been taught all the things that are wrong. And so now we get to understand that there's two thought systems. And we can see that reflected in the two voices within us. One is loud, one is judging, one is attacking, one is guiding us to lie, to cheat, to steal, to feel bad, to be worried, to be afraid. The other voice, which is quiet and gentle, but always there, is the voice that many of us know as our conscience. Jesus is telling us that this is the Holy Spirit. This is God's voice, whispering to us, calling us to awaken, but allowing us to do it on our terms at our time, in a gentle way. Because there's no rush. From God's perspective, we never left heaven. For God's perspective, this is just an experience that he's perfectly comfortable with us having. Indeed, he couldn't change it anyway because he's allowing us the free will to do it. But he also knows that this is not what we want. He knows we have the power that he gave us, and so he knows that we've gotten ourselves stuck in a prison with the door open behind us. And so we need to be called to the door. The Holy Spirit is the voice within us, calling you maybe to this very video, calling you to the path of A Course in Miracles. And so Jesus is our guide to get us reconnected with the thought system that's within us, that's been within us the whole time, but it's the soft, quiet, gentle one. And so now we have an understanding of where the ego came from and why. We have an understanding of what the ego is doing. It's binding us to a thought system that is not true, which is producing fear and guilt on a massive level. It's lying to us all the time. The Course is now coming back with a new thought system. A thought system that we can see reflected within the voices in our head. Some of us have lots of voices. We have more than two. But we definitely have those two. And then we have ourselves in there watching the voices and making a choice. The chooser. Do I do this or do I do that? Do I listen to this or do I listen to that? And so now at the beginning of the Course in Miracles, we start to get this fundamental understanding of this is what's going on inside of me. I'm not evil. I'm not bad. I'm not a sinner. This is the game, if you will, the game of awakening, the game of enlightenment. We're learning the rules through A Course in Miracles. We've been playing this game and we've been playing it so badly, collectively and individually. And that's what we can see reflected in the state of the planet right now. But there's no bad news with A Course in Miracles. It's all really, really good news. And so as we go on to the next part of this, we'll look at the other thought system that Jesus is teaching us, the thought system of the Holy Spirit, the thought system of awakening. So at this point, I just want to remind you of one very wonderfully important thing is that the ego's thought system is fear-based. So first and foremost, if we want to go to a new thought system, it can't be anything to do with fear. And in that sense, it's really crucial to know that there's absolutely no need to be afraid of the ego. We are not battling the ego. It is not an entity. It has no power except for the power that we give it. So the visual of a device, like a Rubik's Cube, we've just been using it and using it and using it and using it. We're just so focused on it. And we can put it down at any moment. And then we can pick up a different cube. And we can peacefully play with this. And that's the visual of our transition from the ego to the thought system of the Holy Spirit, the thought system of love, the thought system of truth, the thought system that Jesus is teaching us in A Course in Miracles, which is our path to awakening and enlightenment. It's a path of happiness and peace and abundance and joy. And indeed, the reason I'm so blessed to be a part of Team Miracles here in Sedona and to be able to sit here with you all and talk about this is because after years of doing the work, and doing the forgiveness and studying the text and completing the lessons and sharing the course and living and walking the path Jesus is guiding us to, that I've had the experiences that I know it works. Jesus offers us in the course the promise that if we do the work, we will have experiences that confirm this is true. It's not a belief system, it's an experience system leading us to truth. We start with a belief. We start belief that there's got to be a better way. We start with the belief that I'm interested in something that sounds like love, that I know the world isn't working, that it might feel like a simulation, that maybe there is something really wrong and I don't know what it is. So I'm willing and open to explore something different. I believe there could be a way that works. We start there. And through the path of the course, we start to get what Jesus is guiding us into, a conviction. Indeed, Jesus makes it very clear that he knows this is important. He doesn't expect us just to believe the words in a book. We need to do what he's asking us: study the text, complete the lessons, faithfully walk the path he's guiding us down. And when we do, and I've had these, and this is why I'm so blessed to be able to say this, is you get the experiences that confirm it. You get a conviction. I didn't figure anything out myself, nor could I have. But now I know something. And the power of that, I cannot put in words for the joy that it's given me, the freedom. I don't know in an arrogant way. I know in a grateful, humble, blessed, joyful way. I've done the work and I've gotten the experiences, which has allowed me to go farther. And the experiences keep coming and the conviction is growing. And this is what's available to everyone on a path of A Course in Miracles. I could tell you about my experiences, and indeed we'll make some content about sharing some of the amazing things that we've all experienced on Team Miracles and witnessed. But most importantly, it's available for you to have your own. And only by experiencing them yourself will you be able to take the next step and the next step. And every step leads to more happiness, more peace. It's simple. It's not easy, to be clear. There's work to be done. And we have to really unhook ourselves out of this system that we've been borderline addicted to: fear, pain, judgment, guilt, anxiety. That's what we're going to put down. So let's put that down for a minute. That is the device or the toy that we're not going to play with anymore. That's a commitment we're going to make. Now, the path of A Course in Miracles is not instantaneous, so we are going to go back and forth as we learn this system, as we learn to choose love, to choose truth. We go back and forth, and we go back and forth, but then we start to build momentum of only using the toy of love, the thought system of Holy Spirit, the truth of the course that Jesus is teaching us. So those are our options. We have a thought system of fear. We have a thought system of love. We have a path of illusions and lies, or we have a path of truth. The choice is ours. God has willed it, we learn, that we will awaken one day by his giving us the Holy Spirit and calling us back. It is only a matter of time, although it could be a very, very long time. And again, there's no punishment for that. It's when do we ever get to the point that we realize this isn't good enough? I'm not happy here. The new car, the new body, the new number in my bank account, the new job, the new vacation. There's nothing wrong with any of those. But if we're not focusing on awakening, if we're not focusing on finding the door back to reality, then all of those things will never fulfill us. And there will always be a bigger house, a better body, a nicer car. And you probably have experienced that on some level. It's important just at this time to say that if you have found this video and you've made it this far, it's very likely that exploring A Course in Miracles fully is exactly what you should do and what you're being called to. And so there are a number of ways that you can reach out to us at Team Miracles in Sedona. You can come visit us in Sedona. We would love to have you meet all the team here, hike, hang out, experience the classes, etc. So please remember that Sedona is where we are and where we'd love to have you come visit us. But also you'll find on the website, sedonamiraclecenter.org, many ways to contact us, to find groups in your area, and other information about getting into the course. The call for love is within us all. This is what the Holy Spirit is. It's calling us to remember love. And so You don't need to come anywhere. You don't need to buy anything. The Course in Miracles is totally free. And please just remember that there's no coincidences. And so, just like in the movie The Matrix, there are people and a path that have been brought to you throughout your life to get you to a point to choose to do something different, to awaken, to free your mind. And the path that Jesus is giving us is that freedom of mind. Jesus is offering us a new thought system, a new toy, a new way to walk. And it's based on the truth of who we are, as we've talked a little about today, an eternal spiritual being, wholly innocent and wholly perfect, empowered with the ability to create a universe, a massive simulation on the highest level. Think of the computing power needed to run a universe. We did this by accident. This is very exciting if you think about it. And so we're taking baby steps towards returning ourselves to that power, returning ourselves to the awareness of who we are, returning ourselves to the remembrance of God, of reality. Throughout A Course in Miracles, Jesus continues to go back to teach us more about the ego, the way its thought system operates, the way we use it, and the consequences of using it. And the important idea is he's continuing to remind us throughout the course that we have the option to choose, that we've been choosing the wrong thing, that it's been making us unhappy, and we need to be vigilant. This is a mind training course. This is a path to retrain our minds out of a thought system that we've been using blindly. And so we, day by day, week by week, month by month, train our minds to think a different way, to think with truth. The results are incredible. My better half, Rachel, and I are blessed to be leading 2 groups of students through the course right now. And in a couple of months, with each group, the changes are profound. And they first and foremost start with understanding that you have an ego, understanding that it is a thing that you've been using and it's been screwing you up big time. And so see the changes when people start to not use the ego, to see the joy and the excitement when they recognize they have been using ego and that it's no big deal, although it's producing negative results. To see the changes when they are starting to consistently think differently. It's so rewarding. And for those who walk a path of Course in Miracles and complete the course, some of us are asked and gratefully guided to teach. And that's what Rachel and I have been led to. And that's what our teachers have done. And to be sure, Jesus is calling for teachers of God. He's calling for teachers of a new thought system. He's bringing the love revolution onto the planet. He's literally training us to reach the level of consciousness that he attained. We'll have a couple other videos on the content of the miracle and describing exactly what it is and what it isn't and how it pertains to the course. But it's important at this point to understand that Jesus is training us to reach a level of consciousness where we can perform miracles, to play our part the way he played his part in waking up our brothers and sisters and healing the world, in shifting the world, and indeed saving the world. We can see the world around us right now in 2025 on the brink of destruction and also on the brink of rebirth. Darkest before the light is one of the ways to see what's happening now. The world is not about to be destroyed. The world is about to be reborn. And us in the Course in Miracles community are literally playing a role to the ego that is arrogant. What Jesus is teaching us is that is humbleness, because we're recognizing the truth of who we are is a powerful son and daughter of God, capable of creating a universe. We are humble in recognizing the joy of who we are. We are humble at recognizing that we made a mistake, a simple mistake. We spilled some paint. We kind of told a lie about it to ourselves. That's all. We have the opportunity to free our minds, to change our lives, to change the world, and to go on a ride that is unlike any available on the planet right now. We like to call it going on a mission from God. And indeed, Jesus mentions a number of times in the course about having a mission, about specifically calling us to this path to help him free our minds and free the world. And so I hope this video was helpful and informative about letting you know the ego as it relates to A Course in Miracles, where it is, what it came from, what it's doing, and giving you a little insight onto the adventure that we here at Team Miracles in Sedona are inviting you to. We're recommending with all of our hearts. We're doing so from a place of joy and of gratitude. Jesus is ahead of us on the path, and he's calling us to follow him, and he's guiding us on how to get there. And we feel at Team Miracles, we're guided and blessed to look back and maybe call you up to where we are. And we can walk together forward, and we can do so in a way that provides an adventure unlike anything on the planet. Please remember, we're not selling it, we're just telling it. Course is totally free, and you can do it from your home. You can come to Sedona and hang out with us. You can move here if you'd like. I highly recommend it. But most importantly, know that we're here to support you and love you. The ongoing content that we're going to produce and the events that we're going to put on and contacts that we have available on our website are all designed to encourage you and support you to, as we have, taken the steps to free our minds.